Even men at the top of their game find themselves wanting more from life. Whether it's more meaning, unshakable confidence, a bigger impact, more money, deeper love, a hotter sex life, or a powerful legacy. Find out how good your life can be on this episode of Man Alive. Also, as I've supported men in their love and work lives for 15 years now, many men ask for the right words to say to be more successful, attractive, and desirable. But I found it's not so simple as giving scripts or lines because every man is different. So giving words or scripts would be like giving a tall, thin man a shorter, wider man's pants, or vice versa. The words have to make sense for you and your personality, and there's so much happening beneath the surface that people are responding to. If you're interested in how to become a better lover and leader in your own unique way, go to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz, or you can text ALIVE to 44144. It only takes a couple minutes and you'll start to get an idea of how you can be both more respected and desired. After you fill it out, we can schedule a time to review your quiz and talk about your specific challenges and desires. So again, go to either shanajamescoaching.com/quiz or text ALIVE to 44144. That's ALIVE to 44144. Enjoy this episode of Man Alive. Hello and welcome to this episode of Man Alive. I'm your host, Shana James, and we are in the midst of an honest sex series within the Man Alive podcast to celebrate my new book called Honest Sex. And we have one of the amazing women who I highlight in the book talking about what orgasm is, honestly, because I believe we've really limited our definition of orgasm, which when we limit a definition or a way we think about something, it limits the experience that we can have. And so Alicia Davon is here today to talk about what is orgasm, honestly, and how can we expand orgasm. And I'm so excited to have you here.
I'm so happy to be here. And I'm so excited about your book. I love it. I have it in my hands. It's right next to me. And I'm just so excited about it.
Thank you. And I think it's worth mentioning. So Alicia and I met 20 something years ago as we were entering into a grad program, a master's program in transpersonal psychology. And then we also found each other again, 10 years later in our Diamond Approach spiritual psychological school. And neither one of those places did we know that the other was going to be there. So we've been on a journey for a long time in the realms of psychology and spirituality and sex. And I love that because to me, the intersection of all of those is where it's beautiful and intimate and rich and healing and transformative. And so I love getting to share that with you.
Mm-hmm. I love it too. And I love the synchronistic aspect of it. Like you're saying, we just have kept finding each other, and we've been engaging in personal growth and teaching and coaching in kind of different ways within the realm of spirit and sex and psychology. So I don't know. I just feel like it's meant to be. I love it.
Yeah, I do too. All right. So you are one of the most amazing and bold women I know. And you get to teach about orgasm. And I think at this point you call it expanded orgasm you're teaching?
Extended orgasm.
Extended. Okay. I wasn't sure if it was expanded or extended. Okay.
Yeah.
So extended orgasm. So let's give a little background. Like, do you have an understanding? And if not, I can fill in a little bit of what the kind of typical definition of orgasm is or how long it lasts.
Yes. So what most of us anyways, we normally think of as orgasm is a climax, right? And we kind of know it as, let's say you're engaging sexually with somebody or with yourself and you're kind of turned on and you get more and more turned on, things increase, you start feeling more and more aroused, and then things kind of level off. And then at some point, you think, well, I want to have an orgasm, or I'm going to have one, or something. Sometimes it just happens. Sometimes we really want to make it happen, right? So often through like tension or faster stimulation or whatever it is, we spike the sensation up, we pop over an edge, and then we have a rapid set of contractions that generally feel incredibly pleasurable.
Mm-hmm.
And then we come down on the other side of that experience. So it's like a climax. It's usually around 10 seconds or so. For some people, a little less, some people a little more, some people a lot more.
Yeah. Right. I was reading the average is 10 to 51 seconds, which actually 51 seems
That's long.
Long for the conventional way of thinking about orgasm.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. So that's great. So, right. There's this, most of us either were not taught anything and it was just like figure it out yourself or I read Cosmo, guys at a long time ago was Playboy. Now it's, internet porn and like we're learning by watching or reading or discovering with someone else. But I think that leaves us very much in the dark. So I didn't know about extended orgasm and what was possible until my 20s, which is early, for many people, like many people never even experience it or don't even know what it is. So again, I feel grateful for understanding it. So help us understand then, how do you okay, before we go to the how, what is your definition of extended orgasm?
Okay, so to define extended orgasm, first, I want to define orgasm in a way that I think is more true and honest. And also makes it way more accessible because orgasm is like, a lot of us can have them and we like them and we're like, yay. And others of us, though, especially women, like many women, like, I don't know if I've had an orgasm or I don't know if I can or I can in certain situations and not others. And it's like a source of stress, which
I love that. Making it more accessible feels really important.
Yeah, because orgasm is, it's our birthright. It's also really lovely and pleasurable. So I think it's really important to give us the best chance to experience it. Yes. So this is
good for us. It's healthy.
Totally. And it's natural. We're all capable of having it. And so I like to expand the definition of orgasm. So first I'll say orgasm is basically, well, there's so many definitions, but one is that it's a set of clinical signs, like signs that can be observed in the body that definitely include involuntary contractions of the genitals. That's the main one that distinguishes it as orgasm. And then there's also lots of other ones like increased heart rate and darkness around the eyes, which is called a pregnancy mask, and engorgement of the erectile tissue, which is like lips and nipples and genitals, and light sheen of perspiration and skin flushing, and just kind of all these things happen in our bodies as we're having orgasm. The most important being involuntary contractions of the genitals. And then I like to add another sign, which is not really clinical because you can't observe it, but it's like that feeling of release and extreme pleasure, right? So when somebody is having all of those happening in their bodies, they're having orgasm. And really, the way to have it is totally relaxing our bodies and then being at a certain level of arousal. It's not even necessarily going over the edge or having the climax orgasm that you have to reach for and tense for, and it's supposed to look just like it would ejaculation. And we've just been conditioned as women, like, oh, it has to look this way.
Right, to think that it's just like those 10 seconds or that it's like, the peak of Mount Everest, like if I could just get there, which like that, it makes it feel way less possible. It makes it less possible for people.
Yes. And the way our bodies work, especially, men too, but as women, we can be in a state of that high of an arousal and that much relaxation where that sensual orgasmic energy is just rolling through our bodies, rolling through our genitals. Yeah, it's just so natural. So
it can be for hours. It's like, it can be endless. I think that's the part that blew my mind, is that people don't really get that that's possible.
Right. Because of our conditioning and the pressure we put on ourselves to perform.
Yeah.
So extended orgasm is being in a state like rather than reaching an orgasm that whatever you said, 10 to 51
Okay.
seconds, right? It's
Climax.
like
Yeah. That
occurrence,
moment.
there's a start and an end and it's short, which by the way isn't bad. That's great to have climax orgasms. There's more possible though, which is
Yeah.
that your body's actually in an ongoing state of involuntary contractions, all those other signs, a sense of release, total relaxation, and heightened arousal over
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. And I think that can be hard for people to imagine. I mean, this can happen for people of all genders, right? Like men can have orgasms without ejaculation and can keep
Mhm.
experiencing that pleasure and that cycle of, you know, feeling aroused and tapering off and feeling aroused or staying, like you said, at a certain height. And, you know, people with all bodies can do that too. Um,
Yes.
and that, right, again, like, so where I was started to go is, okay, that might seem, you know, like a fantasy or like, whoa, I don't even know if my body is capable of that. But the reality is, you know, you and I have both almost trained, or it's like explored and supported our bodies to know how to do that. So it's not something that just usually instantly happens for people. It's, oh, first I have to even open my mind to the fact that something else is possible. Then, right, I can get in my body that something else is possible. Then, oh, how do I actually train my body? I don't know if training is the right word, but it feels, you know, it feels a little intense, but it's like, oh, if you're going to run a marathon, you got to train for it. If you're play a sport, you're training for it, right? So there's like orgasmic training.
Yes. Doesn't that sound fun?
Yeah,
Orgasmic
it
training.
does.
Yeah. And the thing to know is, I mean, if we can at least entertain the idea that there's nothing wrong with our bodies and our
Yeah.
body's capability to feel that kind of pleasure. It's
Yeah.
just, I've like been doing this for 20 years. I've never met anybody who had a problem with their body or there was some incapability. It's really our minds.
Yes.
So the practice or the training is really learning to focus on the sensation in our bodies
Mm.
versus listening to our minds and
Yeah.
what it should be. I mean, it really starts with feeling what you are feeling, you know. So
Yeah.
if you start to sense into your genital area and maybe you feel like numbness. Oh, okay, like that's numbness. You know, what is that like? You
What
know,
does that
versus,
actually feel like
yeah,
versus, oh, that means there's
oh, I'm
nothing there.
numb. Totally, right? Or maybe you feel just a little warmth or like the slightest tingle, maybe, you know, then you say,
Right.
oh,
Am
I
I
felt
imagining it? Am I not? I don't even know if I'm imagining it, but
that.
okay,
You could
let's
even skip all that,
stay.
right?
Yeah.
That's the beginning of it. So
Yeah.
for people who are like, I don't know how I would even start to do that. It's just by feeling what you are feeling and really buying into the fact that your body, it's like a natural thing for our bodies to feel pleasure. Our
Yeah.
minds are the things that get in
Cut it
the way.
off. I
Yeah.
remember, so actually, you know, just being transparent, I think before you and I even met was when I did the courses where Erwan was leading them
Mm-hmm.
and Alicia's partner was leading the courses that they now lead together. And I remember him talking about, like, okay, take your mind and your mental energy and like move it down and out, you know, move it down and out through your body, like let it come out your genitals. And almost, you know, almost like sometimes in meditation, when you imagine a waterfall of energy and it can calm and ground you, like recognizing that we actually have more control over our minds and our states than we
Mm-hmm.
realize. And I think that's where the spiritual piece comes in too, or the mindfulness, presence, that all of that comes into play, because otherwise our monkey minds are running away with us and being like, oh, there's a little bit of warmth there. Oh, but I don't like that. Or, oh, there's a little bit of this there. Like, you're not looking at me right. Or, right, I want this other thing and this thing isn't happening. And am I going to get it? And what's going to happen? And where are we going to go? And all the shit show of the mind.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, it is. It's very much a meditative practice, or at least it can be the practice of extended orgasm. I mean,
Yeah.
you were saying earlier, I think maybe it was before we started recording, but you mentioned, oh, like Erwan and I do these demonstrations. Like we demonstrate a sensual technique. It's a clitoral stroking technique that's the most optimal way to create extended orgasm, right? So we demonstrate it for others, sometimes in groups. And people are often like, how the heck do you do that? Like, how do you not just completely freak out because there's a group of, 30 or 40 people watching you and,
you orgasm. Yeah.
and, I love it and I'm used to it and everything. So there's that, but really it's like all of my focus is right where his finger is touching my clitoris. And that's it. And if I get distracted, which is like a million times during it, I just come right back to that and
bring your attention and awareness back.
Right. Just like meditation. So it's really accessible for anybody.
Yeah. The other thing I'm remembering as part of one of the workshops I did with Erwan was an assignment that's stuck with me till this day. And I think I don't even know if I wrote about it in the book or not, but I remember him saying it was on a dinner break, like to go out into the world and to experience something external, to feel, something external in your body. So I'm looking out the window and there's a tree here. And it's like, oh, what does a tree feel like in my body? I remember going out to dinner and looking at this neon light, and it was some kind of sign, and I just like started feeling, okay, what does that feel like in my body? And so it started to tie in, first of all, that orgasm doesn't have to just be genital, right?
Mm-hmm.
That I can experience that heightened sense of arousal, and that, orgasmic energy in some way is just life energy. It's energy. And then we call it, or we conventionally call it orgasmic when it is attached to our genitals. However, to be out into the world and, in the world and feel the sun, or to feel a tree or some light or whatever it may be, and actually feel the aliveness in your body, like that is orgasmic, we could say.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it can be very, very pleasurable. And then it takes the focus away from that goal orientation. Like, okay, it has to look some way and be some way and match some picture, to an orientation of pleasure and feeling and body sensations. And it's not limited to the genitals. And then you get to just live and enjoy, right? I mean, that's exciting.
Yeah. So exciting to then, right, instead of trying to get to some goal, okay, now we have to get into bed, we have to get naked, we have to touch our genitals to get to orgasm, to recognize that honestly, right, orgasm honestly is a much broader category than we have shrunk it down to.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So what have you seen over the past couple decades, or experienced yourself, or, with your clients? What does it take? You started with putting your attention on the sensation. What else does it take for someone to expand or then extend the orgasm that they can have?
Well, let's see. There's a lot of pieces. I'm trying to see where I should begin.
Yeah.
Relaxation is a really, really big part of it. And being in touch with our bodies is a really, really big part of it. And also, so we kind of touched on those two already. Yeah. Then there's the psychological aspect to attend to, which, doesn't mean you have to go to therapy for 10 years or something, but especially as women, there's, you could, but you don't have to. It's, but we have, most of us are like, experiencing a split between our sexual selves and our non-sexual selves, our sexual selves being that just, place in us that really feels sexy and turned on and ravenous and so open to feeling sex and pleasure and orgasm and really wanting that, right? There's a part of that in all of us. And then there's the part of us that's been conditioned to feel like that is not okay for some reason, right? Through like religious upbringing, through conditioning from our families or our culture, adverse sexual experiences or unwanted attention, or like all those things that happen in response to our sexuality, right? To have us feel like, oh, I better turn that off, because that's dangerous.
Yeah.
Right. So in order to really have orgasm, extended orgasm, and be able to let go, you have to deal with that. So I'm not saying you have to change your past or heal or be perfectly 100% enlightened or something like that, but really deal with the part of you that's like, no, that's bad. That's naughty.
Right.
I mean, most people listening can probably be aware of that part of us that really wants it and the
Yep.
part of us that just is like, no. So
Right.
becoming
No, I
aware
don't
of
feel safe. That feels disgusting. That's not right. That's right. All the conditioning and the things that we've learned from the culture and people
yes.
who raised us.
Yes. So becoming aware of that and feeling through whatever emotions are coming up. It could be in the
Yeah.
presence of a coach or a therapist or within in your own inquiry or wherever.
Yeah.
But being
I
aware.
remember, yeah, being aware. I
Mhm.
remember actually in the book when I was writing about the chapter, What is Sex? Honestly, there was a exercise where I had people start to get clear what they wanted more of. And my editor was like, okay, you just briefly touch on all the things that could be in the way, but you don't have them do an exercise on that. Like, why aren't you having them
Mhm.
do an exercise on that too? And I thought, oh, yeah, right. We've got to actually get clearer, more conscious of the things that are getting in the way before
Mhm.
we can really be free to know oftentimes what we want.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's good to do that kind of work um, simultaneously with attending to your body, kind of like what we were talking about earlier. Because it's also, I mean, some of us have had really, really difficult or traumatic or painful experiences sexually. So tending to those however you need to is really important. Like we
Yes.
will often refer, people will come to work with us and we're coaches, we're not therapists, even
Mhm.
though we're both psychologically trained.
Yeah.
We're not trained as trauma therapists. So we'll often, refer someone out or have them do that simultaneously if they need that, or it seems like it'll be helpful. So, depending on whatever level you're at with that, you have to respond accordingly. But, if you're doing kind of a whatever psychological work, you also want to be engaging in practices to increase sensitivity in your body. So it's like that kind of
Uh-huh.
processing and feeling and dealing with the psychological stuff, but also starting to, the sensuality exercises, you probably remember them from the
Yeah.
pleasure course for you,
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
that. That's an example of starting to tend to your actual body as well as
Right.
doing
I
the
mean, that makes so much
psychological
sense. It's
work.
like, right, a couple, two legs or a couple like, I don't know, four legs on a table, right? But I'm thinking like right there, at least, if
Yeah.
you're clearing out the psychological, but then how do you actually, right? I remember some of those exercises around eating more slowly and, touching fabrics and just starting to become much more sensitive and to be able to feel subtle touch and sensation as opposed to needing it to be hard to feel it. Like I remember probably it was back then that they said, okay, there's nothing wrong with vibrators, but if you as a woman, if you use a vibrator, you're training your body to need intense hard sensation to feel
Mhm.
pleasure. And so I remember at that point being like, okay, that's not going to be, maybe every once in a while, but not part of how I want to take care of my body because I want to be able to feel more sensitivity and more attunement such that, I can feel someone's touch before they even
Mhm.
touch me, right? The energetic piece of it as well to get more sensitive in that way.
Yeah. It's really nice. The vibrator thing is such a big thing because many, many of us use vibrators. And so it's not like they're bad or you shouldn't, but it really does. I mean, it just makes it so you need like more and more and more pressure to feel anything.
To feel
Right. So,
anything.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. So we've got, right, we're working through the psychology that keeps our mind limiting the pleasure we can experience in our bodies and also becoming more sensitive and also becoming, more embodied. Any other parts you want to bring in?
Well, a big thing that affects all of us is distraction.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I read some statistics somewhere that's like people in some age group, I think it's I don't know, people who are maybe in their 20s right now are having like way less sex than,
I read that somewhere
right?
too.
Yeah, it's like because of all the digital everything and all the devices and the technology, many of us are just distracted and then in
Mhm.
our heads. And it's like that much harder to come back into our bodies or even want to or remember to, which is kind of sad
I
because
know.
there's so much pleasure potentially at our fingertips. So, having time and space to be sensual, having time and space in your life where you're not staring at a screen and that you're doing things deliberately to increase your body awareness. I mean,
Yeah.
that's like a really big deal. And that doesn't have to be any kind of complicated practice. It can just be, oh, I leave my phone at home and when I go for my walk, or I turn my phone off at a certain time of night so I have a few hours of not staring, whatever it is. I think tending to that's really important.
Yeah. Yeah. And people can be so distracted with each other these days too. It's rare to sit down with someone and actually not be interrupted by, oh, wait, let me do this text, or wait, let me do the thing, or, oh, I got to call this person, or this, I'm waiting for this message to come in. And we're whipped around by all of that. And that does take us out of our bodies.
Right.
And
Exactly.
it's like training us out of our bodies. So then when we are in more of a sensual situation, it's harder to stay present because we've trained ourselves to allow ourselves to be more distracted.
Yeah, exactly. And really having orgasm, I mean, it's all about really focusing on your body and the sensations that you're feeling because they're all right there.
Yeah.
So anything that impairs your ability to do that, it,
Takes
it
you out of
decreases
it.
the pleasure. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that the paradox, I don't know if it's a paradox, but it kind of seems a little paradoxical, focus and relaxation. It's like a
Uh-huh.
relaxed focus.
Yes. Yes. It's not like tense. It's relaxed and focused, like ideally how we would feel as meditating.
Right.
Right? Ideally, we
Ideally.
won't be like, right? Just relaxed, focused.
Yeah. Thank you. Is there anything else you want
Mm-hmm.
to say about what orgasm is, honestly, or getting more honest about it?
I mean, kind of similar to what I said in the beginning, but it's really accessible to all of us. I'm not just saying that as some kind of cheery thing. It really, really is. It's very natural to us. So, you can just start wherever you are and start by feeling the sensations that you are feeling and focus on what feels good. And I'm really happy to have been featured in your book. There's a lot of
So
other stuff
happy
in
to have
that
you in there.
chapter. I know.
Yay.
So fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to say too that if you're doing this alone, right, that's a beautiful exploration and you can start focusing more and more. And I think it's great to have a practice where you get to know your body on your own versus trying to please someone else or trying, feeling the self-consciousness or whatever. And then as partners, to have a more honest collaborative approach, right? I love creating experiments of, all right, let's we're going to set a timer for 5 minutes and try this and see where this goes and see what you like and what you don't like. And,
Mm,
just getting to play together and explore together to me is thrilling. And I think it's also, it's connecting, and it then allows people to build on that knowledge, right? Rather than, oh, we're just supposed to know what somebody wants. And now suddenly we're in the middle of a situation that's supposed to go in this direction. And yeah, it's
right.
like without doing our drills. Those are kind of some of the drills of
Mhm.
learning the foundations.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, real orgasm, whether it's like with ourselves or with someone else, I mean, it includes intimacy and communication and presence and like all
Yes.
those really great things that we can have. And, it might feel awkward or uncomfortable at first if you're not, if you are a person that's kind of separated sex and orgasm from intimacy, which a lot of
Yeah.
us have, but bringing those together, I mean, it just makes it all better.
Yeah. Agreed. Thank you so much for being here and for the work you do. And thank you for being part of the Honest Sex book and podcast series. And I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad you joined us for today's episode of Man Alive. I hope you enjoyed our conversation and it gave you something to consider and explore in your life. If you like what you heard, I'd be so grateful for you to subscribe and write a quick review that helps men like you find us. And again, head over to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz or text the word ALIVE, ALIVE, to 44144 to get a sense of how you can become a better lover and leader. You'll start to see how you can be both more respected and desired in your unique and genuine way. If you don't feel as confident or as excited about life or love as you'd like to be, this quiz is a really great starting point and will guide you toward a more passionate love life and a more inspiring and successful career. So again, text ALIVE, ALIVE, to 44144 or head over to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz. Join us each week for a new episode of Man Alive.